George W. Bush released a statement through a spokesperson about the fact that he appeared, or at least appeared to appear, in a music video that Kanye West released over the weekend. Now, the music video was for his song Famous, that was out in his Life of Pablo record. I used to be a Kanye fan, but he's so crazy that I don't follow his music anymore. But the song is Famous. Anyway.
It dropped recently, Anna.
It did drop recently, yes. Now, we can't show you the music video because it's not safe for work. However, we do have some stills that are censored so you can kind of understand what we're talking about. It features a home video camera snaking across several bodies in close-up. They are, from left to right, George W. Bush, Anna Wintour, Donald Trump, Rihanna, Chris Brown, Taylor Swift, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Ray J, Amber Rose, Caitlyn Jenner, and Bill Cosby. They're all in a gigantic bed. They all appear to be nude, and it appears that they just had a gigantic orgy. Now, there is the photo or still from the music video in question. And as you know, he's had issues with pretty much everyone in that bed, including Bush, who he says doesn't care about black people, Taylor Swift, who he bombarded as she was receiving an award. Here is a close-up of George W. Bush. Now, here's the reality. Obviously, it's not really George W. Bush. It's like a wax figure of him. In fact, one of his representatives says, in case there was any doubt, that is not President Bush. He is in much better shape. But it's unclear what he meant by he's in better shape. Like the real Bush or the fake Bush?
No, I think he meant the real Bush. That's a George W. Bush representative bothering to comment on the most obvious thing in the world. You know why? Because I don't know for sure, of course, but my guess is W made him do it. He's like, look, I want people to know that's not me in the video. Okay, everybody's like, but Mr. President, they know you're obviously not naked in a rap video. What do you mean? They don't know. Okay, go ahead and tell them it's not me, not me. Okay. Yeah, of course it's not the real people. Bill Cosby and George Bush were not in a naked orgy with Taylor Swift. You don't have to explain that to people.
This is all very strange. I don't know what it means. I don't know what kind of social commentary, if any, Kanye was trying to make. Apparently, he had an interview about this, and he says that he's not in support or anti any of the people in the video. It's a comment on fame. So all these famous people are in bed together?
No, I get it. No, look, so here's the thing. Everything Kanye does screams, look at me, look at me. And so it's grating on the nerves.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to cause controversy. You force us to talk about it. I can't stand it. Okay. On the other hand, part of the reason we're talking about this is because this, honestly, is slightly clever. So he's right. In a sense here, he has done the celebrity version of the establishment. And they're all in bed together. They all win together. It was an interesting commentary to put Ray J in there, because that's the person that Kim Kardashian did the sex tape with that originally got her famous.
Yeah.
And guess what? They were literally in bed together. And then now they achieved fame somewhat together. Kim obviously got a lot more fame. And so they all support each other. And so the famous win and the non-famous don't win. And there's a great irony that it grates on us that Kanye West becomes more famous through his commentary, in some ways criticizing fame. And so that's the thing about Kanye. Sometimes it's more rare these days. He'll make sense and he'll make an interesting point. 90% of the other time, it won't be an interesting point. It'll be a point disguised as interesting, which is just, look at me, I'm Kanye, hey, pay attention to me. So him saying that he might run in the next presidential elections is very appropriate, because he is very similar to Donald Trump in that way. And Trump might accidentally be right 10% of the time. He's right. There are some problems with some of those trade deals. But overall, his intention is not to be right. It's to attract attention. And that's what happened here with Kanye.
What I always find interesting about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian is how far they're willing to go to not only attain fame, but to maintain it, right? And I look at a music video like that where they're in bed with all these people that either despise them or they've had some sort of conflict with. And at what price are people willing to, what price are people willing to pay in order to get that kind of fame? Like, I know I wouldn't do it, Right?
I know.
I wouldn't even come close. I wouldn't even come close. In fact, I don't like fame. Like, I think it's uncomfortable and it's strange to have like a gigantic number of people despising you because of how lowly you are. Like, I can't imagine.
But Anna, as we've talked about in the past, that's exactly why you're not as famous as them or as rich as them.
That's true. The rich part kind of sucks, but
And why does Kanye? Well, look, the thing that is most likely determined, not only determinative, it's not conclusive, right? Is whether you're going to get rich and famous in America. Unfortunately, is whether you're shameless enough. Again, Trump and Kanye and Kim Kardashian are perfect examples. No shame. There is no bottom to that barrel. So,
but they have kids. Like, and maybe their kids are going to grow up in that environment. They're going to think this is all normal, and they're not going to.
Look at our environment that the Kardashians grew up in, with their mom constantly pushing them into the spotlight, pushing their clothes off of them. Get your clothes off at the earliest possible age. Take pictures. Make pornos. Let's get famous and rich. They grew up in a culture where there was no such thing as shame.
Right.
And so this is the result of that. And Kanye thinks he's making a comment on it, but he's actually participating in it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you say, well, they already attained it. Why do they keep going to maintain it, was your question. Well, it's because, again, very much like Trump, Kanye is bankrupt. Remember? He was crying to Mark Zuckerberg and, please, please, rich white people, come bail me out. Pathetic. Anyone else would have a little bit of shame and go, oh, Jesus Christ. Don't embarrass yourself like that. Don't unman yourself in front of the whole world. But he doesn't know what shame is. So that's what he does. And they're not remotely competent. If they had achieved fame and wealth through their competence, they wouldn't constantly go bankrupt.
I know.
They're terrible businessmen. They're not very bright. Their only talent is that they, unlike most of the rest of us, they have no shame at all.
Yeah.